people making noise outside. How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Ayin Tes, Daf 79 of Masechet Ksubis. Friends, Daf 79 is pretty close to Daf 80. And Daf 80 means that we're up to Daf 80. That's a lot of Dafs of Masechet Ksubis. Friends, Ksubis is getting a shtickle complicated these days. No, what do you want me to tell you? I mean, it's getting a shtickle, you gotta take out our brains. Friends, today we're talking about Nichsei Melug. Oh man, Nichsei Melug, I better stretch on that, excuse me. A little stretch, a little babble yawn, Rabbi Yisrael. Alright, so we're going to talk about different aspects of Nichsei Melug today. It's interesting stuff. You know, it's not exactly the quickest moving material in the world, but it's interesting nonetheless. Let's go weiter. We're on Daf Ayin Ches Mebez, 3 lines from the bottom. So you have a widow, and she's got her own property, and she's getting married, she's getting remarried, and she doesn't want that this new guy should have all of her property. She doesn't want that, right? She doesn't want that she'll get married, and then while she's married, he's eating all the fruits, and then if she dies, he inherits these properties. For whatever reason, she doesn't want that because they get married, he should have access to all of her properties. So what does she do? So again, she wanted the tavrachinu to just basically chase him away, like she wanted to keep away these properties. So she was looking for a loophole, that if she comes into the marriage and she's got these properties, so then they're nichsei melug, and they're hers, but he can chaparan the peiros, and if she dies, he chaps maran. So now, but she doesn't want that. Kasavtinu libarta. So she wrote all of her property to her daughter, and she comes into the marriage and she says, "I got nothing. I don't have no properties. Oh yeah, my daughter, she's got a lot of property. I got nothing." In Siva, and she got married, Vigarsha, and she got divorced. And now what? She wants her properties back. She gave them to her daughter. She wanted them back, but she gave them to her daughter. But she only gave them to her daughter as she was looking for a loophole. She only gave them to her. She didn't want to actually give her property to her daughter. She wanted to give her property to her daughter only so that this guy she was marrying wouldn't get him. But they're not married anymore, and now she wants her property back. I saw the comment of Nachman. So they came before Nachman, and the daughter takes out the document and says, "Look, I have a document saying that my mother gave me all these properties. They're mine now." Kare Rav Nachman the story. Rav Nachman chapterein the document, tore it up. Also Rav Anan l'kamid ma'ukva. So Rav Anan comes before ma'ukva. Amar lechazima leNachman chakloyo heichi mikra shtari de inshe. So Rav Anan comes to Marukva now. He went to Marukva. We had a similar dialogue with Rav Anan and Marukva the other day with Rav Huna. Remember, Rav Anan called Rav Huna Chavrin. Anyways, so in this case as well, so Rav Chanan goes to Marukva, who is the Ab Bezdin, Babylon, Rabbi Yisrael, and then so he goes to Marukva. He says, "Amalei Chazimar Nachman Chakloya Heichi Makra Shtar Dinshe." And Rav Anan says to Marukva, "Look, do you see how what is it called? Nachman Chakloya, Nachman the farmer." Interesting. Kilu, Rav Nachman doesn't know what he's doing. Heichi Makra Shtar Dinshe. How he's just tearing up people's valid documents. Right? This girl came to court with a document that says that her mother sold her all of her property, and Rav Nachman is just tearing it up. Omerle. So Marukva says, wait a second. Emali easy gufa de uvda echi ava. Marukva says, tell me exactly what happened. Omerle. So Vonan says, Hachi vachi ava. This was the case. There was a woman. She was getting married. She gave all the properties to her daughter. Omerle to Marukva says to him, shtar mavrachas ko amart. You're talking about a document. You're talking about a document that its sole purpose was really just to keep the husband away, but not actually to give the property to the daughter. Reb Chanilai bar Idi says the name of Shmuel. Mora Hayraya Ani, that Shmuel says that I am right, as Rashi points out, says Rashi, third line of the page, Notati Rishus Mereish Gelusa, K'daminu Perakam Desanechin Demahani Rishusa, V'loyayve Rishusa, El Levaki Badavar. That Shmuel says that's actually super interesting. That Shmuel says that he was appointed by the exilarch as someone who can be more halacha, can sort of preside law, if that makes sense. Rule law things, make laws, make rulings, be a judge, thing, decider, law, decider. In Yavu Shtar Mavrachas Liyadein, Shmuel says that if a document like this, a Shtar Mavrachas, a document that was created with the intent of just, keeping someone away, Akra'enu, says Shmuel, I will tear it up if somebody actually tries to sort of collect with that, to enforce that in Bezdin. Look, it's a Shtar Mavrachas, it was only created as a loophole to keep somebody away. It doesn't actually have validity. Amalei Rava le Rav Nachman. So Rava says to Rav Nachman. So one second. So Rava says to Rav Nachman, there was the story with the woman and the daughter. She was keeping the property away from her husband. And Rava says to Rav Nachman, so I know that you tore up the document. So did you tear up the document because you were assuming like Shmuel? Because you were assuming like Shmuel, who says that when you have a Shtar Mavrachas, Shmuel said he would tear it up. But time of my, why would, Rav is asking of Nachman, I would assume that, why would Shmuel tear up a Shtar Mavrachas? Because a person isn't just going to give all his stuff to another person. But that makes sense if it's literally like a stranger, somebody else, or just another person not related. But Rava asked of Nachman, wouldn't I say that a mother would be happy to give her property to her daughter? So in that case, I wouldn't consider it to be a Shtar Mavrachas. I would think, Rav Nachman, that it should be a valid document, and that, the daughter should be able to enforce the document. But the Gemara says that's not the case. Even so, even though it's a mother and daughter, still the mother wants her property, and therefore, if she's writing this document just to keep it away from her husband, right, from her new husband, so then it would be considered a Shtar Mavrachas, and the daughter won't be able to actually collect with it, and that's why Rav Nachman tore it up. Meisvei, we have a kasha. If you have a woman who wants to keep away her property from her husband, so what does she do? So she writes a document to other people to say, look, can you take my property? That is what Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says. Okay, as Rashi says, shtar pasim, shtar piusim, shemefayas lekabel matanos o lafkia zechus baile kod misun velo sheyizke mekabel zeboin. But that the receiver shouldn't actually be able to receive them. Right? So she writes to this other guy, look, you can have all my stuff, but she doesn't actually intend for him to have them. That's Reb Shimon ben Gamliel's opinion. The Chacham say, that no, I think people are yelling. People are definitely yelling. Yep, there's yelling. Yelling is happening. Yelling is definitely happening. Whereas the Chachamim say that if the fellow wants, he can act upon it. That if she's giving away her property to some fellow before she gets married, if she then comes back later, let's say after they get divorced, and say, look, I want it back, he could say, no way, no how. Unless she writes in the document, me'ayom, that it's yours from today, and until I want to take it back. And as long as I want it to be in place, in force. But once I want it back, it's mine. Time the kozva lehochi. So the reason why she can get it back is because she specifically wrote that into the document, right? It's like she made a smart contract. She made a condition in a smart contract that says that, I guess based on a certain condition, it goes back to her. So time the kozva lehochi, alo kozva lehochi, kanoni lokech. But if she doesn't program that into the smart contract, so then it will belong to the borrower. So why was Rav Nachman and Shmuel, why are they assuming that just because she gave it to her daughter to keep it away from her husband, that it makes it a shtar mavrachas and it can be torn up? we have this brayso that says that she can only take back her stuff if she writes that into the document, but as long as she doesn't write it into the document, she can't take it back. So well, it depends how much she gave away. If she's giving away absolutely everything, so then she doesn't need to write that condition. It's obvious that she wouldn't be giving away absolutely everything that she owns permanently, and therefore she can take it back even without writing that stipulation to the contract. But if she only gave away part of her property, well then maybe she is giving it away, and she would have to write into the contract that when she wants to get it back, it's hers. So now, as you may have been wondering throughout this entire discussion, I don't understand. So if it doesn't really belong to the borrower, to the person who she's writing it over to, right? She has all the property, she's writing it over to some guy, and we're saying it doesn't really belong to him. Well, if it doesn't really belong to him, well then it should really belong to the husband. But so well, we treat it like property that is unknown to the husband, like Reb Shimon, right? Reb Shimon had said that what did Reb Shimon say? Reb Shimon had said that if there are these properties that are unknown to the husband, so then he can't chap maran. So here also we treat these properties that have been like given over to this other person, even though she'll be able to get them back in the future. We treat it like property that is unknown to the husband, and according to Reb Shimon, that she would not be able to collect them back. Oh wait, what? No, and what am I saying? And therefore, the husband would not be able to, eat the fruits and chap maran. And now we get to a new Mishnah. Nafla ksofim. Interesting. What if she gets money? She gets cash, right? So we've been talking about where the wife inherits property. So if she inherits property, the principal belongs to her, and the husband can enjoy the fruits. What if she inherits money? How does that work in terms of the principal and the fruits? Well, the solution is she takes the money, invests it in property, and then once there's property, she owns the property, he gets the fruits. If she inherits fruit that is detached from the ground, so you sell the fruit, take the money, invest it in property, and then he can eat the fruits from that property. If she inherits fruits that are connected to the ground, says Reb Meir, so what you do is that so you evaluate the land. How much is the land worth without the fruits? How much is the land worth with the fruits? And the difference between those two prices is the price of the fruit. And then he pays her for those fruits, and then that money is used to purchase land. Okay. They use that money to purchase land, and then he can eat the fruits of that land. Well, there are people yelling outside. My neighbor is about to yell at them like crazy. It's interesting. You can't really enjoy yourself in the park because my neighbor is just going to yell at you. It's an interesting situation, but Lamaisa, it's kind of funny situation because of course they're bothering me because I'm recording Babel and Talmud, so I wouldn't really mind if she yells at them. But at the same time, I mean, I guess technically they are allowed to be in the park. But Chacham Omer is the Chacham said, right? So according to Reb Meir, you find the price of the fruits that are connected to the ground, right? So you figure out the price of the fruits, and then he pays her for that, and then she buys land, and then he eats the fruits from the land. But Chacham Omer is the Chacham said Mechubarim lekarka shelo, that no, whatever's connected to the ground this is. So meaning if she inherits land, and the land has fruits, so automatically, immediately, the fruits go to him. And he can enjoy them. So you don't need to sell anything. Oh, is she yelling at them? I'm not sure. V'atzlushim and akarka shela, and whatever fruits have been disconnected from the ground belong to her. V'lokoch bo'en karka, and then you sell those fruits, use the money to buy property, and then ruach haperes eats the fruits from that property. Reb Shimon Omer says, Reb Shimon, malkum she'afakochu b'chnisasa hu'akochu b'yitziasa. Says Reb Shimon, where he has the advantage at the beginning of their marriage, or at the beginning of the inheritance of this property, if they get divorced, so then he has the disadvantage. Where he has a disadvantage at the beginning, at the entrance, he has an advantage when the marriage, right, when if they get divorced. Ketzad, what does this mean? Well, like the Chacham said, that if you have if the wife inherits property and the property has fruits and the fruits are connected to the ground, so those fruits belong to him, as the Chacham said. But if they get divorced, so then the fruits belong to her. Now, fruits that are detached from the ground, initially they belong to her, and then you sell them, and then take the use the money to buy property. But if they get divorced, so then they belong to him, fruits that have been detached from the ground. Okay? Says the Gemara, Pshita ara uvate ara. Okay, so if there is, an option between purchasing land and purchasing a house, so then certainly, right, if there's money, they can use the money to buy land or to buy a house, ara. The land, right, we go with the land. Bate v'dikle bate, houses and palm trees, date palms, houses. Dikle v'ilne dikle, if it's between date palms and other fruit trees, date palms. Ilne v'gufne, ilne, if it's between other fruit trees and grapevines, other fruit trees. Ibaz zardisa, a forest of sorb trees, which I guess don't produce any fruit, like edible fruit. Ufir the kavre, or fish ponds. Amr lepeir v'amr lekarna. Some say those would be considered fruits. Some, and then we go to him. Some say it would be considered principal. Klal demilsa gizo machlif peira and gizo machlif karna. If it's something that you can swap out and immediately it produces more, so that would be considered peiris. But if not, it would be considered the principal amount. Alright, what do you want me to tell you? Amr B'zer says B'zer, Amr Boshaya, the name of Boshaya, Amr B'yanai. Amr B'aba, Amr Boshaya, Amr B'yanai. Hagonev Vlad Behemas Milog. So now this is interesting. What if a fellow steals the offspring of an animal of Milog? Hoi vavoy. What is that talking about? Wait, Babylon. So what if she brings in animals? Right, so let's say she brings in a cow. So the cow belongs to her, but if the cow has a calf, so the calf would be considered the peiris, and that would belong to the husband. So now if a fellow comes along and steals the calf, so Vlad Bema, right, so Agonev Vlad, what? Agonev Vlad Bemas Milog, if a Ganef steals a calf from a behemas melog, of an animal that's the nichse melog, mishan tashlum kefa leisha. Wow. So I bet you were thinking that who would get the double payment when he pays back the animal? I would think the husband, right? It's considered the fruits, right? The cow is the keren, and the calf is the peiris. I would think if somebody steals that and they have to pay double payment, it should be double payment to the husband because he stole the peiris. But we're saying mishan tashlum kefa leisha. We're saying that the double payment goes to the wife. Now, of course, right, if you steal something, so then you have to pay twice, right? You don't just pay back the same amount, you pay back twice the amount that you stole. And that's what we're talking about. So, come on, that sounds like it's neither like the rabbis, nor like Chananya the Tanya, as we're learning the price of Vlad, Bemas Milog, Lival. So, the offspring of a Milog animal goes to the husband. So, if you have a cow, and it gives birth to a calf, that calf belongs to the husband. Vlad shifras melog leisha. However, the offspring of a melog maidservant, so if she brings in to the marriage a shifcha knainis, if she brings into the marriage a shifcha knainis, so the offspring from the shifcha knainis belongs to the wife. Chananya ben Achi Yoshia, Omer says, Chananya ben Achi Yoshia, Osu Vlad shifchas milog ki Vlad bemas milog, that they make that says Chananya ben Achi Yoshia, that we treat the offspring of a shifcha knainis of milog like the offspring of a behemas milog, i.e. that the offspring goes to the husband. So we see that both according to the Chacham and according to Hananya, the offspring of a behemas milog goes to the husband. And yet, we're saying that if you steal this child of a behemas milog, the kefil goes to the wife. So no, you could say that this idea with kefil even is according to both the Chachamim and Hananya. Peira takinu le rabbanon. Look, the Chachamim and Hananya both agree that the offspring of behemas milog goes to the husband, right? So if you have a cow of milog and then you have a calf, so the calf goes to the husband. But if that calf gets stolen, and now we're talking about the double payment, so peira de peira, that's the fruit of the fruit, right? The fruit is the calf, but the fruit of the fruit is the double payment that they would receive if it gets stolen. So that double payment goes to the wife. The calf goes to the husband, the double payment goes to the wife. Right? So peira takinu le rabbanon, peira de peira lo takinu le rabbanon. B'shlam el Chananya. So now the Gemara says, okay, now I understand the opinion of Chananya. So I understand Hananya's opinion. Hananya's opinion is that you can have an animal of milog, you can have a shifcha of milog, and in both cases, if they give birth, the offspring would be considered fruits, Paris, and they would go to the husband. And he's not concerned, well, what if the shifcha dies? What if the animal dies? Then you won't have any Karen left. So if you don't have any Karen left, then it's not Nichse Milog where you have Karen and Paris. So therefore, right, but Hananya and the Chachamim, according to Hananya, he's not concerned that the shifcha is going to pass away or that the animal is going to die. And therefore, the shifcha would be considered the Karen, the animal would be considered the Karen, and their respective offspring would be considered the Paris, and it's both for, and they belong to the husband, both by the shifcha and by the behema. So b'shlam l'Chananya, I understand Chananya's opinion. We're not concerned that the animal or that shifcha is going to die. Ella, Rabbanan, I don't understand the opinion of the rabbis who say that by the animal, the offspring would go to the husband, i.e., we're not concerned that it's going to die. Yet by the shifcha, the offspring goes to the wife, i.e., it's not considered milog, that we're concerned that the shifcha might pass away. Ella Rabbanan ichayshe lemisa. So if we're concerned for misa, well then afilu vlad bemas milog nami. Well then we should be concerned that the animal will also die, and it shouldn't be a situation of milog, and the child shouldn't go to the husband. Right? So afilu vlad bemas milog nami lo vi lo chayshe lemisa. And if we're not concerned that about death, well then afilu vlad shifchas milog nami. Well then even if we're not concerned about death, well then the shifcha should also be considered milog, and the child of the shifcha should go to the husband. So why do the Chacham say that it goes to the wife? So the olam chai shele misa. So really the rabbis are concerned about misa. So if they're concerned about misa, then how come by the animal the offspring goes to the husband? V'shayni behema, because behema is different. The ika erva, the ika ora, because there's the hide. Meaning an animal that dies doesn't lose its value 100%, because there's nonetheless the hide that will still belong to the woman. So therefore there's always going to be some form of Karen, because there's going to be some form of, it will go to the wife, and therefore because there's going to be some form of Karen, so it would be considered milog, and the husband gets the offspring. But by a shifcha, if the shifcha passes away, then there's no Karen anymore. You lose the Karen, and therefore it's not milog, and therefore the husband cannot get the offspring. Omar Rav Huna bar Chia Amar Shmuel halacha ki Chananya. Rav Huna bar Chia says that the halacha is like Chananya. That the halacha is like Chananya. That there's no distinction between shifcha and behema. Amar Rav Nachman, Afal Gavda Amar Shmuel, halacha ki Chananya. Says Rav in the name of Rav Nachman, that even though Shmuel says that halacha is like Chananya, Mode Chananya nonetheless admits Shem Nizgarsha, that if she gets divorced, no sen is dam v'no talton, that even though the halacha is like Chananya, that the offspring of the shifcha belongs to the husband, if they get, in the event that they get divorced, she would pay the husband for the offspring back, out of the glory of her father's house, right? That she wouldn't want the shvachos of the offspring of the shvachos to belong to him if they're getting divorced. She would want the offspring, and therefore she would pay the husband for the offspring and take them with her. Amar Rav Nachman, Hichnisalo eiz lechelba, says Rav Nachman, that if she brings into the marriage a goat for its milk, virochol gizasa, or a sheep for its wool, vitanagolas the beitzasa, or a chicken for its eggs, videkala ferosav, and a date palm for its fruits, he can eat it until there's no longer any keren left. So, because meaning there's always going to be something left, right? Meaning if there is a sheep or a goat, there's always going to be the hides. If there is a date palm, there's always going to be the wood. If there is a chicken, there's always going to be the feathers, and therefore there's always going to be some principle left, and therefore he can consume the fruits. Amar Rav Nachman Ailale Glima, says Rav Nachman that if she brings in a garment, Perahave, they're considered fruits, Mechase Beva and he can sort of enjoy wearing the garment Ad Dechalia until it gets worn out and unusable anymore, and then she can keep the worn out garment, and that's the Karen. Kimanu is that like Aitana, it's like the following Tana, the Tanya, Melech Vachol, Areza Paris, that if she inherits like a salt kind of place where you get salt from, or a place where you get sand from, they're never really going to run out, and therefore, Areza Paris, he can enjoy the fruits. Pir shel gofris, but a thing of like sulfur, machpor shel tzrif, or alum. What's alum? Is alum related to aluminum? Aluminium? We should ask my cousin Mark. He was like an aluminum executive. Maybe my mom will ask him. He's a good man, Mark Bodner. Good man. Good man. There's a lot of good people in my family. Shugafas machporish shel tzrif. Reb Meir Omer Karen v'chacham Omer Paris. So Reb Meir says that it would be considered Karen, the principal amount. V'chacham Omer Paris. The chacham say it would be considered fruit, because as long as there's like going to be a little bit left over, so it would be considered that there's Karen there, and therefore he would be able to enjoy the fruits, and therefore that's like Rav Nachman says that this worn out garment would be considered enough keren that you'd be able to enjoy wearing the garment, which would be considered the Paris. Naflu la avodim, says the Mishnah, that if she gets avodim ushvachis zekenim, but they're old, and therefore there's a chance that they might pass away, in which case, so yimachru v'yilakach mein karka, what she should do is she should sell them, and then use the money to buy karka, which isn't going to go anywhere. Paris, and then he can enjoy the fruits from the karka. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, lo timkor, do not sell them pnei shehin shvach beis avia, because they're considered the glory of her father's household. Do not sell the avodim and the shvachis. Nafla zeisim ugufanim, if she gets olives and like olive trees and grapevines, zekenim, if they're old, yimachru, they should be sold v'ilokach ba'en karke, and then use the proceeds to buy property, v'ochel Paris, and he can enjoy the fruits from that property. Rabbi Yehuda Omer says, Rabbi Yehuda lo timkor, do not sell the olive trees and the grapevines, because they are the glory of her father's household. Omer of Kana says, the Gemara there of Kana says, Omer Rav, the name of Rav, machlokas shenaflu bisada shelo. So it says of Kana in the name of Rav that this machlokas about the grapevines and the olive trees, about should she sell them, should she not sell them, are they considered the glory of her father's household? So that machlokas is if she owns the field. She owns the trees, she owns the field. So, even if the olive trees die or the grapevines die, she still at least has the field. So, aval b'sada she'ena shala, but if she doesn't own the field, if her father, if her family only owned the vines, but the field belonged to somebody else, well then, Divrei Timkor, everybody says that she should sell them, from the kokaya karna, because if the trees die, well then she's going to have nothing left. Maskefla of Yosef asked the kasha, avodim ushvachis. But what about avodim ushvachis? The chisada she'ena shala dami, that it's similar to when she doesn't own the field, i.e., if they die, everything is gone. Uflige, and yet there's a machlokas about is it considered shvach beisavia or not? Eli itmar, rather, if it was stated like this, Amr of Kana, Marab, machlokas b'sada she'ena shala. That the machlokas is when the field does not belong to her, which is similar to avodim ushvachis, and that if the trees die, then she loses everything. Aval b'sada shala. But if the field belongs to her, then everyone agrees that she should not sell them because of the glory of her father's household. Well, friends, that was Daf Ayin Tes of Masechta Ksubis. Friends, there's a lot of interesting stuff there. We talked about shtar mavrachas, right? If you write a shtar just to keep somebody away. And we said that basically you can do that. Now, if you give away all of your properties, then you don't even need to write any special stipulations. But if it's only part of your property, then you're going to have to write that. Look, when I want to get it back, I can get it back. We talked about what happens if she inherits money. So she'd use money to buy the property. We saw machlokas between Chachamim and Reb Meir about what, right? So, well, the Mishnah had said that if there are fruits on the, okay, one second. So how does it work? So use the money to buy property, and then the property belongs to her, and the payers, the fruits go to the husband. Now, if she inherited, if there were loose fruits on the property, so then those fruits you sell, use the proceeds to buy more property, and then she gets that property, and the husband gets the fruits. If the fruits were connected to the ground, so according to Meir, what you would do is you would find the value of the fruits alone, sell those, and then use that to buy more property. According to Chacham, fruits that are still connected to the trees would belong to him, and he can enjoy them. Reb Shimon says that there's a difference between coming into the marriage and when she inherits the properties and if they get divorced. That when it comes to the wait, did I skip a shtickle? Oh wow, I skipped a shtickle. Okay, we'll have to go back in a second. Okay, anyways, the Chacham say that, no, so according to Reb Shimon, like the Chachamim, that if the fruits are connected to the ground, so then they belong to him. But if the fruits are connected to the ground when she leaves, right? If they get divorced, then they belong to her. Now, if the fruits are separated from the ground, when she gets the property, they belong to her. But when they leave, they would belong to him. Friends, we skipped a shtickle in the Gemara. I skipped a line, so let's go back and do them. In the middle of Daf Ayin Tessim Beis. So Reb Shimon Omer Makom She'afek Kocho, that where he has an advantage at the beginning. So Reb Shimon on Tanakama. So says the Gemara by the two dots right before the Mishnah in the middle of Ayin Tessim Beis, that Reb Shimon seems to be saying the same thing as the Tanakama, which is that when she inherits the property, any fruits that are connected to the ground belong to him. So the nafkamina is, yeah, but what if they're connected to the ground when they get divorced? According to Reb Shimon, they would belong to her. According to the Chacham, they would belong to him. Friends, that was Daf Ayin Tes of Masechta Ksubis. Hope you enjoy. Peace out.